Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce to you our Black-owned Business of the Week, where we showcase quality Black-owned businesses for you to support every week. This week's business is Soulstar Tea and Wellness, based out of Virginia Beach, where they have high-quality artisan teas crafted using premium tea leaves, organic herbs, pure spices, dried fruit, and other natural ingredients. Available to you on their website to order, including two of my personal favorites, Sweet Mahogany Roast and Tropical Cider. If you're a tea lover, be sure to visit their site so you don't miss out. Fatherhood is simultaneously a tremendous undertaking as well as a privilege, with no greater reward in life according to the fathers that I know, include my own. On this week's episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show, the Breakdown crew sat in with two very special guests, graphic designer Gordon Tolson, as well as DJ Alito Melton, to discuss what do they wish they knew as first-time fathers. Let's see what we come up with.
Nice. That's how you start off a daddy conversation.
I know, right?
So the question we have for today, what do you wish you knew as a first-time father? Comment below, let us know. Also, the guests for today's episode include Gordon and Lito. Did one of you gentlemen, Gordon, you wanted to go?
Oh, yeah. I'll start it off. My bad. What is something that I wish I knew as a first-time father? I would say something that I wish I knew. All right, I'll put it this way. I wouldn't say that it's something that I wish I knew so much, but I wish that I had more or less a blueprint of sorts. Not like a blueprint, but I wish that I had a better communication with my father and or grandfather, to where when I became a father, I would have a greater understanding of the different challenges that are involved with being a father, husband, and then, worker, employee / businessman. Or not that they would give me that aspect, but more so just different perspectives of what to expect when you're a father, what to expect, to match that with being a husband, to match that with going to work. I wish that, that would have been more of a conversation that I could have had with them. Because I feel like with that, it's also challenging to more or less find time for self, to, kind of have a moment to detox, kind of do my own thing, kind of, I guess refuel myself, if you will, with trying to because for me, anyway, I more or less try to be the best dad that I can be the best husband that I could be, be the best employee / business owner that I can be. So, where's the grace to have the time to where you can more or less detox for yourself? I wish that I could have learned that early on, or had that conversation. So if that makes sense, hopefully.
That makes perfect good sense, man. Just to kind of, I guess, add to that, I'm not answering the question yet, but to add to what you're saying, sometimes it might, like from my experience, sometimes it's better to learn for self, because when you have, other parents, they want to tell you how to parent their way, and parenting is something that you have to format your own thought process around and do it the way you, and you and your kids grow and build that, and it has to be something that you create. They can give us the jewels and advice, but that worked for them. It's not gonna say it works for us, but I definitely think that, of course, having guidance always makes things better.
Absolutely.
I like that.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I like the wisdom in what you just said there, because a lot of times it's either people, they go foot for foot with the things that they're told, or they completely reject it. But you're saying like it's not an either or approach, like to take and be receptive to the advice that's given by your parents or family relatives, whoever's in your life, but also making it tailored and catering towards the experience that you have as a parent.
Oh, absolutely. And not to cut you off, Lito, but I think in that, no, you're absolutely right. But what I was saying is more so like it's like a weather forecast, if you will. So like if the weatherman is like, oh, it's gonna be cold on this day, or it's gonna rain on this day, you can be prepared, or you can kind of gauge what you need to be expecting throughout the week. So I was speaking more so from that lane, but you're absolutely right. One of the things for me, I used to always be kind of worried about getting married. That was a fear of mine. Being a father, that was a fear of mine. And just like you said, Lito, I heard a messenger say, he said that you're the author of your story. Grab the pen. It's not about the other stories that you read, or basically the other lives, like you've seen, have bad experiences. It's about the experience that you create. So you was absolutely right with what you said, but continue on. I'm sorry.
No, I just was going to thank you. I just was going to answer the question. What was it again, Josh? What would you wish you knew before becoming a dad? That was the question?
Yeah, what do you wish you knew as a first-time father?
First time. Definitely the time involved with managing the kids. Like Bryan was saying, I wear a bunch of different hats, and I wish that I was much further along in my career before I start having kids, because now it's like it's like a hokey pokey thing. I'm kind of successful, but I'm kind of not successful. But now I got kids, so it's like I have to be home. I have asses to wipe, diapers to change, bottles to make. I have to be up at night at 2 a.m, 3 a.m. I have to work. I got invoices. I got, payroll. I got all this stuff to do. So it's like, I wish I would have been further along in my career. I wish I would have managed my time better, because, the most important thing in our community is the fathers being absent. So we need to be more present as fathers. And a lot of the times I'm not present when I need to be, because I'm out at 2 a.m. doing a party, or I'm coming home. And, so like, I wish I would have had my timing worked out better, because kids, they demand a lot of your attention. When I'm home and I'm trying to work, I got one on my lap. Y'all just heard I had one trying to get down here before we started the meeting. So it's like, it's just a time management thing. I wish I would have had a better handle on that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I agree.
When I talked to, so you guys didn't actually address it. Maybe for the viewers, it'd be good to tell us how many children you have. I think both of you have 2, but I'd like to, if you want to shine some light on that.
Well, Lito, he sounds like he's a little bit more experienced, so you can go first with this one.
I can't say I'm more experienced, because you have 2 kids too, right?
Well, I have 1 and 1 that's pending, 1 on the way.
Oh, okay, I got it. I like that pending. I like that.
Yeah.
I really have 3. Okay, I have a stepson who's 12.
Okay.
He's pretty much almost self-sufficient. We're gearing him toward waking up in the morning, making his own, oatmeal or cereal, whatever he wants to eat for breakfast. Go ahead, get in the shower, or putting his clothes on, take the dog out. So we're kind of gearing him for that, and it's working. It's not working. He wants to get up and get on his game, but the babies, they're a whole different ball game. I have a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old. So the 2-year-old, everything was fine and dandy. When she was a baby, she was counting, ABCs and everything, starting to potty and go to the bathroom on her own. Out comes my 8-month-old, when he was a newborn, now she don't want to potty anymore. She wants, I want you to change me like you changing the baby. Now she don't want to count anymore. She don't want to say her ABC. She wants to talk like the baby's talking. And it's like, well, damn, can I cuss? It's like, well, now she's taking a reverse course. Now it's like she wants to do everything the baby's doing, and it's like, it's frustrating for us, because now we still have to buy diapers, and luckily she don't want a bottle anymore, but she still wants to eat her food. But it's like everything the baby do, she want to do. Like the baby's starting to say Dada now, and she wants to Dada, but she can say daddy. but she wants to da like the baby said. So it's tough. And like I was saying, about the time, it's just really difficult because sometimes I feel like when I'm chilling with my son, and then my daughter wants to come get on my lap, I'm like, well, she's hating. But you can't look at it like that because they're kids. They don't know. She wants her daddy just like he wants his daddy, or who his mom has him, vice versa. So it's like, it's really tough, man, because you have to fight, and you have to be poised to keep everybody happy. Even our 12-year-old, I have to be careful because he wants time too. He wants time. Those little conversations I have with him, about things. He takes pride in those, me making him laugh, and so it's really difficult, man. It's a tough task, and I wasn't prepared for this a year or two ago. It's just like I said, with just my business. I've been doing my business since McDonald's, Bryan, but now it's just starting to blossom, and I'm starting to be booked a lot, every weekend. So it's like, it's tough because that's happening, and I want to put all my time and energy into that. And I think I could be a lot further if I did, but I got these kids, so it's tough.
Yeah. And for me, I have the one, here on the outside right now. He's 3. And I see a lot of the things that Alto was saying with his kids. It's called, my wife, she's done a lot of research on it. It's called regressive behavior, where like you're saying, like the older child is starting to mimic the younger child. And even with my son, even though he's by himself, like in the thing that she was studying, it says like once the kid learns how to do a new thing, sometimes they'll backtrack a little bit because it's like they're learning something new, so they kind of backtrack to a comfort level. So like with your kids, it's probably, the baby is getting a lot more attention than you probably feel that you need to give the other kids. So she's probably, not that y'all doing it, but she's probably keen to that kid is getting a little bit more attention, and she probably wants all her attention back. So she's like, oh, well, let me mimic what this kid is doing, because this is the sweet spot. Let me pee myself so they come change. You know what I mean? So, but with my kid, similar to what he was saying, I feel like, now in my career, it's starting to blossom a lot more. But for me, I feel that it's important to be a good dad, like I was saying earlier. So, I work from home. I've been working from home for 8 years because, I've kind of positioned myself to prepare for, having a family, building a family, and things of that nature. So I can be close and be around my son, and, if my wife needs anything, so on and so forth. But, like Alto was saying, it's hard at times because, kids do need their father's attention. And, like I told y'all earlier, my son, I'll be in a business meeting and he'll come up to me, he'll be like, Dada, and try to talk to me. And I don't want it to ever seem like the business or the money is more important than he is. So, I'll take that moment to look at him and talk to him and let him know, like, daddy's doing something right now, so on and so forth. And like, I've never, like, I had a gig I was working for in California, and my wife, she needed to have her gallbladder removed. So she was having symptoms prior to us knowing that she needed to get it removed. She was just real sick, and he was a lot younger then, and she couldn't really attend to him like she needed to or wanted to. So I had to kind of pick up that weight. And I told my job all the situations that was going on and everything like that. And they just they wasn't having it, man. Like, how we do Zoom calls, like a lot of times I would have the camera off, because I would be doing other stuff. I would have the Zoom on my phone, have my earbuds in, but I would be moving around the house dealing with my son. So anyway, because of that, I had so many strikes against me, and they wanted to let me go because they said that I wasn't the model consultant that they were looking for and all this and that. And I told them that's fine. You know what I mean? Because I'm never going to put money above my family. So, but yeah, basically everything that Alto was saying, I totally agree. It's an interesting balance, especially. Oh, I apologize. I've been saying your name wrong.
man. I get it all the time.
Alito, is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's right.
Alito, okay, I apologize. But yeah, everything that you were saying, I totally agree with it. I see a lot of that now with what I have going on with my business as well.
So let me ask you this: how do your constituents look at you, or how do they approach situations where you have your son when you're at a meeting, and you got I ain't like child noise, or if he's actually on camera in your lap, are they receptive to that?
I let people know up front, this is my life. I have a kid. You probably, and like if it's a new client, I'll preface it. I'll be like, I have a kid. You might hear him in the background. Sometimes he walks up to me, blah 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 blah. But we can still do this meeting or whatever. But just be aware that this may happen. He may try to run up and be in the camera and all this other stuff. And I'll try to get my wife to move him out the way. But I mean, I think, especially with the pandemic, I think it really eased over for a lot of people, because a lot of people had a greater understanding of what it's like to work from home. Because prior to the pandemic, everybody was like, oh, business, suit and tie, at work, people would be sitting at a desk with like a tie on, but they got like basketball shorts or underneath, but they're still trying to keep that like business corporate look. And I never really followed with that. I was just like, I'm at home, this is what I look like at home, I'd be chilling at home, but it's about the product, it's about the work, it's not about what I look like so much. I mean, if we were having like a meeting with like other clients or something like that, of course I would wear like a button up and things of that nature. But on a day-to-day, just working internally with people, no, I just let everybody know this is what it is. And for the most part, I would just mute my Zoom, so they wouldn't hear that interference or anything.
Gotcha.
As the only member of the breakdown crew, the core three of us that's a parent, shout out to Des, phenomenal father from everything that I've seen. And I say that sincerely. So could you share and enlighten us to what you feel was the biggest challenge, or excuse me, what you wish you knew as a first-time father?
Yeah, for sure. For me, this is a bit more of a difficult question, because as you know me, I'm more of I'm a realist in the sense of I like to tackle everything head on. And so I'll always look at everything as a challenge or a lesson to be learned, rather than looking at it from a perspective of regret as far as being ill-prepared. So for the most part, I agree with everything, Alito and Gordon have said this far. But sounds like out of the bunch, I may have had a kid at the youngest. I have my son at 22. So what I will really say that, and this is probably the only thing out of the entire process of being a young parent that I wish I knew, but it was to, understand your essence as a man first. Like, know the things that are of a core fundamental value, what it means to stand on, your 10 toes and be willing to die behind your word and things of that nature. Not in the warrior sense, but in the sense of just like understanding that this is your family name, this is your pride, this is your skill, this is your joy. Like, everything comes back to you at the end of the day, because, from what it sounds like you guys may have, your partners, I don't want to speak in from an experience that I haven't been a part of, but it may be a bit easier when your partner is able to pour into your cup, or for you to pour into their cup when, times are tough or whatever it may be, whether it be work, children, your own aspirations. I would say as a single parent, it's a bit more difficult to pour in your cup. But what I've found with, understanding my essence as who I am as a person, who I am as a man, it's made filling my own cup 10 times easier. Because the things that I heard being a 22-year-old college student was, once this kid comes out, it's no longer about you. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. I still think that you come first, because if you're not satisfied, if you're not fulfilled, if you're not being the best version of yourself, the only person that's going to struggle is that child. It's innate in your nature that you're going to struggle because you're not, living up to your full potential. But the child struggles as well, because, karma in a sense isn't one of those things that just comes from the sense of your own neglect. Karma can be passed down from generation to generation, to where the karma your child is experiencing is the karma that you pass down from. That's why we have that whole generational trauma, phenomenon. Like your negligence of yourself just doesn't affect you, it affects generations that come after you. And I think that's like one of the most important things, because trials and tribulations, whether you have a kid or not, you're going to go through them. I don't think it's fair to say the magnitude of my trials and tribulations are more substantial than someone who's single or entrepreneur, or having the joy, or I guess you say the leisure to chase their dreams or chase their skills. Because it's still, my brother is he's a lawyer, and I'll say the things I've watched him go through to get to where he's at are 10 times more trivial than what I've had to do as a parent. And that's just because I've taken my experience and I've made it my own perspective. I haven't tried to sit here and say, okay, X's experience is this, and I'm trying to compare everything that I'm doing now from X's experience. Like, I'm making sure that my journey is my own unique journey, and I'm making sure that everything that I do is in line with what I'm supposed to be doing.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
You said you're a single father, so you have custody. Or
so I did it my yeah, I did it my way then. So to be very transparent, my son's mom and I, we were in a relationship for like 4 years before we had our son. So we never were engaged, never were married, but we had the maturity at that age. I don't know how we had it, but we always agreed that we would speak as adults. And so we have like what would be legally established as joint physical custody, but it's, hey, these are your days, these are my days. If we need to have any flexibility in the schedule, you have my number. Like, we're very, very, we're more friends now than what we were when we were together.
That's
so we
great.
have the flexibility and the freedom to, flow absent of, magistrate's order.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm glad you brought up the partner thing, because that's another thing I would like to add to my answer of the question. I wish I would have known the toll it would have took on my woman after having a baby. That 6 week period, and then her being mentally out of it and physically out of it, and me wanting affection and attention and not being able to get it. So I wish I would have known that too, because that would have made a huge difference on my approach on how I treated her after the kids and during, then her being pregnant and, wanting stuff at 2 a.m. Like, I wish I would have had a better handle on that. So I guess, back to what Gordon was saying with having that blueprint, from our older, dads or uncles or whoever, not knowing that stuff and experiencing it, like, makes you want to walk away and say, you know what, fuck this, I'm out of here. But, you have to look at it and see what's more important. What's more important is having this family and going through these tough times, and this being a part of your story. To look back and say, hey, man, I remember when you was pregnant, I had the da-da-da-da-da. I didn't like it, but I did it. Telling the kids stuff like that, when they're old enough to understand it. So thank you for bringing that part up about the partner.
Yeah, I would say that was probably one of the things that I'll add in as well, is understanding the feminine aspect as well, the power of the woman, because it is very easy in those times, whether it be raw emotions or, lack of communication, to put the self first in a time where the self really is the second or third option. Like, that's one of the biggest things, to be very honest. That's like that 6 month span after birth, and your child's 6 month portion was like when things did deteriorate, because as being 22, you have your own emotional traumas as well, or emotional experiences that you're trying to get over and reconcile. And then you're talking about, that period after childbirth where you have postpartum depression, and women really having to come to terms with the fact that that energetic being is now in its physical form, and it's no longer inside of them, providing that light or whatever. Like, it's no longer attached to them. It's still attached in the sense of, mother and, offspring, but at the end of the day, it's no longer that, that physical connection that it was with that, with that fetus being inside of them. So those are things that I definitely wish at 22, I never try and give myself the benefit of the doubt, but it's something as a man I wish I would have been more aware of coming into, young adulthood and young parenthood.
I think for
Glad
me,
you guys.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Please.
I was just gonna say, I think for me that I was kind of mentally prepared for the feminine aspect of it because of my mom. Like, I mean, my mom and dad, I was raised with both of them, but most of the big lift, I would say, my mom, she was the architect of like my understanding of a lot of things. But anyway, she would give me a lot of game on like a lot of stuff, and I saw, because me and my sister were like 12 years apart, so I saw her like pregnant with my sister and like all the woes that she went through. But understanding that the female perspective of like what they go through in regards to having a baby, raising a family, preparing a household, things of that nature. I think I was already aware of a lot of that, and I had certain sensitivities to that. Like, for example, like with my wife, when she had our son, like her foot was like numb for like 2 weeks or so, and like she couldn't really walk on it. That was her exhibit A, but she couldn't really walk on it for like 2 weeks or so. So I was doing like a lot of stuff in addition to work and helping her with the baby and so on and so forth. So it's a big lift, and I think from experiences that I've seen from other people, I definitely think Alito was speaking on it as far as communication and having needs and things of that nature. I've learned from other couples, some of my family, that that communication of the man and the woman can really break the relationship, because men don't have that understanding that the woman, she may have a wrath of hormones that change her temperament, or change how she feels, or change her emotions, or she may have a short fuse where she's easily angered, or she may not feel pretty or whatever, to where she wants to be intimate, or she may not have certain feelings. But from a man's perspective, we don't understand that. We don't see that. We don't have those feelings. So, from those relationships, I learned as a young man, it really puts a wedge in the relationship. So then, like, after she's better, they still have that wedge, because he didn't try to give her that grace or that mercy when she needed him most. He was more so selfish, like, oh, me, I'm the man, this is the way it should be, blah, 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 blah. And, she doesn't really feel that she can trust him the same way, because when she was weak, he wasn't there for her. Similar to how women are with their man, when their man is sick or whatever, they're very, nurturing and so on and so forth. Anyway, but I just wanted to say, and to you, Des, salute to you, man. I'm happy that, even though that you have, you're a single father, you have that relationship with your child's mother, to where y'all can kind of operate, cohesively, and not have a big trauma or anything like that, because that kind of stuff affects the kids too, where they see why does daddy talk to mama like that, why does mama talk about daddy like that, or why can't I see daddy, so on and so forth. So because you kind of skipped over all that, I think it sounds like you have a pretty healthy relationship for your child.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely taken it's taken time, because again, you're young and it's just raw emotions. You don't have that wisdom yet. But I would think that the best thing that's benefited us as two separate individuals is that we've had, like I mentioned, one thing I would have loved to have had as in my utility or my arsenal before being a parent was coming into your essence. And I think we've been able to come into our own, respective essence, to where I've realized that as much as I am my father's son, like I'm a bit irrational, but I'm very ambitious, and I have things that I want done in my way. I have my mother's grace to where I can sit back and acknowledge what is, and I have the ability to reconcile. You know, we won't overuse the word trauma here, but I have the ability to reconcile, past negative actions that, were done based on emotional responses. Like I do understand that an emotional response is still a response at the end of the day, but it's not that person's primary response unless they are indicative of an emotional, person in their, their true nature. So I've had that ability to say, I understand how I have directly impacted certain outcomes, and to just, call a spade a spade. I think that's been one of my my most brilliant attributes, because it allows me to move forward without any regret. Because regret can be, and I was having this conversation with Bryan and Josh, like in my childhood, I've had a bad habit of misguided regret. And the last thing I ever want to have happen in my, time as a parent is to have any misguided regret, where my son is the recipient of negative emotions that don't even originate within me, but because I'm harboring them and I don't have the proper channels to express them, it's coming out in a way that's harmful, because that at the end of the day is going to create a traumatic experience. Son, he is autistic. He has no understanding of where emotions at this point truly originate from. So for him to have that understanding of emotions be his first initial encounter with them be a traumatic experience, it ruins his purity, his what's the word? Yeah, we'll go with purity. Like, children for the most part are pure. Like they're blank slates. They have the ability to learn anything, and that be both the good and the bad. So, I've definitely, attribute my my successes as a man from not just my dad, but the graces of my mother as well.
I want to take a step back to something that the three of you touched on, and I was really looking forward to. I'm happy that you guys mentioned the relationship dynamic between the man and the woman, and understanding the feminine nature that is and how it's impacted on motherhood, because that could put extra strain on the relationship. And I feel that as a young man, I'm not a parent yet, but I do think those are the kind of conversations we really should be having with people in our family. Like, a lot of people think parenting is this taboo subject. They don't talk about it. They don't ask other people for advice because it's my child. You can't tell me. I think that's very ego driven, but there's certain things, like as I'm getting older and coming of age to where I'm really comfortable in myself and trying to learn how I could be the best father in the future, learning from my dad, my grandfather. I mean, I think this is a conversation I probably should have with my mom as well, about what was her experience when she was raising me and my sister. How was she affected? Because honestly, I'm just now recently, between talking to other individuals and having similar conversations like this, I'm just now becoming enlightened to how a woman is truly affected after pregnancy, because that's not something that it doesn't directly pertain to us. So I don't feel like there's a lot of information readily accessible to us, or maybe it's just that we haven't done our due diligence. But I do think that there's a lot of ignorance on our part as men, because we just simply don't know. But it's not for lack of it existing. Like I can easily ask my mom. Like, I told my sister she just recently became a mom, and I told her about my niece. I said that's the practice child. I'm observing, I'm learning, and trying to see what I can distill from that, because those are things that are going to help me be better, and be for now, just be the best uncle that I can be. But taking those things like this trial run of sorts, because she cries too much, she's going back to her mom. But like I said, take this trial run and practice and apply those skills that I see what comes from my niece getting effective parenting, and then applying that in the future. So I think that's something that's really important. I really feel like there's a definite need for more information or more dialogue around how exactly women are affected by pregnancy, because most times it just stops at, oh, pregnancy is hard, so, oh well, you have the baby and that's that. It's like, no, there's more. There's a physical component, there's a psychological component, there's a relationship component, and we don't actually dive into it. Like we might, even if you understand that there's those three components, if not probably more, but it stops there. But we don't actually have the understanding behind that. So I really appreciate you guys bringing that up. And in preparation for this episode, like I said, I was talking to my dad and my grandfather about fatherhood and their experience about it. And so my dad, he had said something really interesting, because I had this conversation with him a few months ago, and he had mentioned that he wished he knew more about credit specifically and financial literacy in teaching, or having that information to teach me and my sister when we were younger, because I feel like my parents did a great job. And I think since this episode is geared towards fatherhood, I want to say that I'll just say that I had great parents. And my dad specifically, even, he was saying that he enjoyed parenting me and my sister so much. That's probably what I know for a fact, he said that's what he's most proud of. And that's no different from what I've heard from other fathers as well. They're most proud of their children. And he said the only thing that he probably wish he would have done different, aside from the financial literacy thing, is needs versus wants. So taking more, like I remember growing up, I had all the Transformers, all the Power Rangers. I had more toys than anybody I knew. And he said he would have focused more on investing in my future and less on the material toys. Like, not saying that I wouldn't have had that, but taking the money and putting it in places to where it would pay off in the future and be more beneficial then. And so I think that's something that really has shaped my perspective. And after that conversation with him, I was thinking about how exactly do you raise a child and have them appreciate, because ultimately you want to, every generation pays them forward. You want to give your child a better quality of life than you had. And so if you're doing that at a certain point, at a certain critical mass, once it's reached, the child is going to have an excellent quality of life, or I'll just say, like, more than what you had, and the child might be really well off. So how do you distill that mindset? And so my dad, essentially, he was saying that balancing the needs, that's the quality of life, that's what he's really focused on. But still, there's a microcosm in which you allow your child to work for their wants, so they still have the discipline, so they still understand the value of things, because otherwise they don't. And I'm kind of curious on what you guys' thoughts are to that specific dilemma, because as you alluded to earlier, Gordon, with the finance perspective, like passing down of money, I can't remember if it was before the recording or during the recording. Like, we've been talking for so long, but that's something that is well documented. The dissemination of wealth across generations isn't exactly common.
No, I think what you said is absolutely right. So for me, like I was telling you all before we record, I'm always studying, like, behind the scenes of things. So with that, study behind the scenes of, relationships, study behind the scenes of motherhood, fatherhood, and then what you were saying with finances, Bryan. And that's one thing that I've truly pushed forward for, is building having a strong financial understanding of how money works, how money moves. I have, like, tons of books on it. I'm always listening to various podcasts about it and so on and so forth, like, because I don't believe in each generation starting from scratch. I feel like I should be able to hand off a baton to my son, to where he's starting at a different starting block than I ever reached, if that makes sense. And so, like, for my son, for example, he has a brokerage account. My son, he has investments, in Amazon, Google, and so on and so forth, what I've been trying to do, like, for his birthday, I got this from John Travolta. I was looking at interview John Travolta. He was saying on his kid's birthday, he gives them $1 million for whatever year it is. So, like, when they're 1, he gives them $1 million. When they're 2, he gives them $2 million. So then that's $3 million in totality, and so on and so forth. So, I've been trying to do that with, like, $1,000, because I'm not quite, at the millionaire status like John Travolta. But in essence, by the time my son's 18, he should be close to being a millionaire, especially with compound interest and things of that nature. So, but I definitely think having financial literacy is important. I was looking at an interview with this one lady. She said her son always wanted new Jordans and so on and so forth. And so she said, well, I can't afford to buy you the Jordans, but we can buy stock in Nike. And so then she taught her son about investments. And now her son's a millionaire. When I saw this article some years ago, he was 14 and he was a millionaire. And because he learned about the stock market, he learned about investing. And so as opposed to buying the entity, he would invest in the company. So then the company would send him shoes or send him whatever he wanted because he was a large investor for the company. So and I don't want to take a bunch of time because I can dive down the rabbit hole talking about financial literacy and all that, but I just wanted to say that I definitely think it's important, and I think I think you were talking about how your father was saying that he gave you all the toys and he wished he gave you more of understanding of the practice as opposed to the material goods. I agree with that because I think a lot of people, they try to flex like, oh, my baby wearing Gucci, ooh, my son, he got Jordans, ooh, look, my girl, she got Tiffany diamonds on, and all that stuff. Like, that's cool, but those aren't assets at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And those are liabilities. You want to teach the kids how to garner money, how to make it grow, how to make it blossom. Like, and I think a child, in my opinion, I mean, I went in the social experiment as we speak, but I think that if you teach a kid, how to attain more of something to the positive. So for example, if I can teach my son, rather than having a piggy bank, that the money is stagnant and it won't grow and garner interest or anything like that. If I can teach him about stocks to where if you want something, invest in it and then watch it grow to where you can then later acquire the thing. So I think that you can make it a game to where it is fun for a child. Like there's this Black woman, I can't think of her name right now, but she invented an app where it teach about stocks and investing for kids. And a lot of kids, they've been, buying into it. And they've talked about how, especially in the Black community, like a lot of kids that have been doing it, they've been garnering wealth and, they've been learning about, finances and so on and so forth. But I'll end it at that. I think it's important. I think I've sold that message. And, I'm going to try to see how it pans out for my kid, because I think the biggest challenge will be getting my child to understand something that he cannot actually see, in the present moment. So like when you put, $2,000 in the stock, you don't see the money, you don't really see anything. It's not tangible like a toy. So I'm trying to see how to communicate that with him as he gets older, to where he understands the importance and the value of it, as opposed to the value that he'll see in a new game console or a new transformer, as you were saying.
Or Game Boy in my case, right?
Game Boy, yeah, of course, because that was you should have invested in Game Boy as much as I saw you with one.
That's another good point too about the teaching the child to prepare for the future. It's like the Stanford marshmallow experiment. Are you familiar with that? Josh and Dennis, you guys should be.
I think I've heard of it, but go ahead. Teach me again. I think I heard of it though.
So they had an experiment they did with a bunch of children. And so what they did was they told the child they could either have one marshmallow now or they could have two in 15 minutes. And so the children who exercised more self-control, they turned out to be more successful in life afterwards. So they followed up and did just check-ins further down the line. And so there was a direct correlation between the understanding of the future and preparation for that, and discipline and success in life. And so really instilling that in your child to make them understand that, okay, if I sacrifice now in the immediate future, like in the next few seconds, I can have a greater benefit in however or whatever time span you want to project that in the future.
Absolutely. No, I don't think I've heard of that particular one, but I heard something similar. But no, that's awesome. Yeah, so I guess I'm living in that. I'll keep you updated on how it works out for me.
Josh, what were your thoughts on this? I know you're in a similar situation as I am.
Yeah. To be honest, I liked everything everybody said. I love how Bryan and everybody talked about women postpartum depression and how we don't, as men, don't really know about what women go through unless we have that experience, like Gordon said with his moms. But yeah, I liked everything you said. I'm gonna be honest. I asked my dad this question, and he didn't really understand me, so I couldn't get a straight answer out of him. Like, he didn't really understand. He was honestly answering it in a joking way, like, hey, if I knew how much you guys cost, I don't know. he was answering in that way, but that's not the answer to the question that I'm looking for. Right now, so.
It sounds like answer my dad would give.
Yeah. So, and my dad is old school. Like, my dad had his first kid during Vietnam. So,
oh wow,
my dad's like old school. So yeah, I know he's talking like my sister's 50th birthday is this week. So she doesn't talk about that. You're really young. You're the youngest in the family. So yeah. But yeah, I like everything you guys said, and I had a question, but you guys already answered it. So because you guys really knocked that out of the park, I liked it, and I love hearing different perspectives too, because we having Des on, we hear him about his kid and everything like that. But it's good to see you have two different other fathers on and see their perspectives of raising kids and see how it is. So, and I think that's pretty cool.
I have something I want to bring up in regards to fathers. Unless Alito, did you have something that you wanted to say in regards to financial literacy for kids and whatnot?
Nah, I agree with everything y'all were saying about that. It's very important, and I'm actually in the process of, with my wife, we're teaching our 12-year-old a lot about what we're learning about business. We're trying to teach him he wants to get into live streaming video games. So, it's a little money in that. So we're just kind of researching and learning the proper way to get him set up with that. But that's all I have on that for now.
Okay. If y'all don't mind, I just wanted to ask, because one of the things that I'm concerned about as a father is that, I think Bryan said earlier, you want your kids to have it better than you and so on and so forth. So I'm going to read this quote and then I'm going to expound on it. So there's this quote I heard a while ago. It says, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And so with that is like let's say that I was a millionaire and, my son, he doesn't know about poverty. He doesn't know about struggle. He doesn't know about, difficulty attaining anything. It's just everything comes to him easily. He'll have a different paradigm. Well, better yet, let's talk about like the celebrities we were talking about earlier, like Jay-Z growing up in Marcy Projects. Blue Ivy will have a different paradigm than her father does in regards to what it takes to make it in life, what it will take to, acquire a thing or be invited or be welcomed into a particular realm of existence regarding success, wealth, ambition, and so on and so forth. So I was going to ask you guys, based on that quote, have you all, well, I know two of you haven't had kids yet, but do you worry about positioning your kids to because you're eradicating certain challenges that you went through for your children? Do you worry about you're basically raising children that don't understand the Rubik's Cube? They don't understand all sides of, I guess you would say life or, existence as a person, because you've removed certain variables out of the equation for them.
Me personally, I know a very well-off African gentleman who, when I was young, he took me under his wing and groomed me. He had this is the kind of money he had. To be a bail bondsman, you have to put up $200,000 in cash or collateral, meaning like property or something. So he put up $200,000 for me I'm not his kid, but to become a bondsman so I can work for him. He did it for myself and 3 other guys. So it's like, but all of his kids worked. All of his kids, you know, had it tough. Not because he didn't want to, but he wanted them to, I guess, kind of experience what he experienced, you know, get it out the mud, as they say nowadays. He wanted his kids to get it out the mud, and he didn't want to just kind of give them because he had it. He didn't want that to, you know, like you said, he didn't want them to not respect the hustle, respect the grind. He kind of wanted them to know, hey, if you want this, you have to work for it and put in the effort. You know, I'm not just going to give it to you, or it's just not going to be given because your dad has it. So I kind of sort of would like to maybe take that approach a little bit with my kids. I'm not where I want to be financially as far as, you know, being able to buy what I want when I want it, but I'm headed in that direction, you know, because my business is growing every day. So my kids will never see what I saw. They'll never see roaches or the hood or any of that stuff, because you know, we're already positioned to where we're comfortable and good. So they'll never see none of that stuff. But I still want them to understand that, you know, if you want something, you work for it, because that's what I'm a workhorse.
For the African gentleman, did he have his kids working within his organization, within his bubble, or when you say, you know?
No. One had a job at Food Lion, the other one was at Taco Bell. Okay. So they were out working.
Okay, I was just wondering if it was within his business that he owned, or if it was like that he had them out in society trying to make it. Yeah. Okay. So
I mean, I kind of would like to take that approach in a sense, with just kind of letting them know. Like I was saying, I'm a hard worker. Like when I met Bryan, I was working at McDonald's, but I had another job, 2 other jobs, you know what I'm saying? So McDonald's was my part-time thing I kind of did on the weekend. So it's like I've always had more than one job or more than one source of income coming in. So I want my kids to have that same drive. I don't want them just to be like, okay, well, my dad got it, so I'm good. No, I don't want you to think that way, because then that'll cripple you, I think.
Right.
I don't know if it will or not, but that's just my perspective.
Right. Des, what did you think? Like, what is your perspective regarding like the financial literacy and, or, you know, creating or putting your child in a position where they have it better than you, but they are not aware of certain, you know, variables or aspects that you're aware of because you didn't position them to grow up the same way you did. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I guess to nip the most recent statement in the bud, I was that kid. Like my dad is one of 8. I think he's the second to youngest. My mom came from the projects. Like she's an adopted, you know, black and white girl whose white mother didn't want her. Like I am the embodiment of that quote, to where I have 2 parents that had it the most difficult. I wouldn't say the most difficult, but they had their own trials and tribulations that afforded me a lifestyle that was 10 times easier than them. And I wouldn't consider myself weak, but I had the hardest time. And, you know, my late teens and early 20s, I was stepping on my own toes more than I was actually taking steps forward. What I would take from my own, you know, self-sabotage is that it's not necessarily the tangible that you can afford your child, it's the experiences as far as enlightenment. And Bryan, Josh, and I actually talked about this at dinner the other day, where my mission as a parent isn't to necessarily provide tangible goods, it's to educate by any means necessary. And when I say educate by any means necessary, I can't force 2 + 2 = 4 down your throat, but I can pass down a multitude of experiences of what it feels like to be on both ends of the spectrum, to see what it's like to struggle as a young parent, not knowing, you know, their own journey, like not understanding the power of just your dreams, like following your dreams, like really struggling to understand and grasp that concept, and then to be on the other side of your 20s, the younger side, to where if you wanted a pair of Jordans, they were there for you on a release date, or if you needed anything, if you needed to go to private school and things like of that nature. I experienced all that. So on one side of my 20s, I was that kid that was given everything, and And on the other side of my 20s, I've been that kid that's kind of had to figure out everything. So, you know, it'll be more or less, you know, what I can teach my son, not necessarily what I can provide, because the tangible goods will come. I think it's just a product of your essence or of your nature of being here. You're going to want to experience good, and sometimes it's going to be toys, but it, you know, for me, I had more toys than I could ever keep up with. So I know there's a cap. I had every electronic that ever came out. So my goal is to, like, if you have an expressive desire in it, it's not to just give it to you so you can play with it for, you know, 12, 14 hours out of the day like I used to. It's to, like Alito said, okay, the streaming industry is booming right now. You know, you have, when I was growing up and I was playing games and I was telling my mom I wanted to stream, it was unheard of making millions of dollars and thousands of dollars a day doing it. So it's like just knowing the power of following your dreams, that if you can see it and if you believe it, then you can achieve it. So it's just more or less instilling the important wisdom that comes with having these tangibles, because a lot of times we're just giving it out of blind faith, or in this case, our parents wanting to have more than what they had. So we don't understand the true value of it. But my goal is to always, you know, a la Malcolm X, like, by any means necessary, you're going to get this knowledge, you're going to get this wisdom. And I think that's my...
I think a lot of parents, what Alito was saying, how when they remove those challenges, they do it with good intention, which everybody, I mean, the highway to hell is paved in good intentions. But when they do that, it's not always well thought of. So I think it's a really interesting time we live in. I say this for the fact of for the first time ever, we're starting to see these child stars that are raised alongside the internet. And I think a lot of parents, like I had saw this woman who was, her son was an infant, but she was making him a social media star and dressing him up and doing all this crazy stuff. But it's just like, with that being so new, I don't feel like it's well thought out enough to how that's going to impact the child from being subjected to the public attention, to be on the internet, to be used as a prop as opposed to an individual, because the child can't consent to doing that. And so they think that by providing the money, just because the financial part is taken care of, the child's gonna have a better quality of life. But that's not always the case. Just because, like, and I think that stems from a mindset of finances, from money being the primary problem, because when you think that you have to solve nothing else is problematic, and that's not the case.
Well, you can look at Michael Jackson with that. I mean, Michael Jackson was a child star, attained a great mass of wealth, and grew up and missed his childhood, so he created Neverland, you know. So I mean, we've already seen that kind of social experiment kind of pan out to fruition. Sure. And then you have another kid, it's like Ryan's Reviews or whatever, some kid, he does toy reviews. He makes $20 million a year doing toy reviews, and he started when he was like 6 or 7. And so, you know, what you're saying is, you know, when he's a man, you know, how would that really pan out? Because, like, basically the world knows him, you know, for being a social media star doing these toy reviews. Right. So it's like, how does that pan out?
I think it's even more severe when the parents document every step of their child's life, because their entire being is publicized on the internet. And like we see recently, there had been a thread about that resurfaced where some people had said things about Blue Ivy, and they were talking about like the texture of her hair, with it being that of a black child, a young black child. I mean, but people were saying, making comments about the texture of it, and saying that, okay, for her to be a mixed child, but it's like, she has 2 black parents. What are you talking about? What did you expect? But the fact that she's subjected to those things on a higher degree, so that could potentially affect her negatively. I hope and pray that it doesn't. But I'm saying that when you have your child cast in that kind of spotlight, they are not only reaping the benefits of it, but they see the nastiest parts of the world. You can't always shelter them from that, especially on the internet.
And then,
I'm sorry, that. Like what you said about Michael Jackson, that's certainly true. But I think that this new phenomenon of the child star in the social media era, with TikTok, with YouTube, with all this.
Well, it's different for sure.
It's gonna exacerbate. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's different because they can contact or communicate with the child directly, as opposed to seeing him on a television and having no connection to him whatsoever.
Yeah, the child stops being a child, but starts to become a piece of content for the parent.
Absolutely. I've actually I was watching a documentary where they were talking about a lot of, because like for example, with my son, we don't have him on the internet whatsoever. We don't really talk about him on the internet or anything because, you know, I want him to have the quality of life of where he can, you know, choose what is put on the internet. Like he can choose how he's portrayed. He can choose how people see him or whatever. So, you know, it's kind of, I look at it similar to like social media, for example, like Facebook. Like if somebody would walk up to you and ask you some of the things that Facebook asks you, like where do you work, when were you born, what school did you go to, like if you was just standing on the sidewalk, somebody walked up to you and asked you those questions, you'd be like, what the hell, get away from me, you know. But on the internet, people are just willing to put, oh, look at my kid, you know, half naked in a diaper and so on and so forth. They just put all this stuff out on them. And I was watching this thing where they were talking about a lot of kids, their confidence and self-esteem is so much lower because other kids at their school can see those pictures of them when they were younger, when they were, you know, 3, 4 doing crazy stuff, and it's just on the internet forever. And, you know, they're more or less shunned, if you will, or like they don't feel they don't feel like they can really clean it up, like if they were to start their own social media page or anything, because their parents have already kind of damaged their image publicly. So it was interesting, to say the least.
Josh, what were you about to say?
No, I wasn't about to say. Did you have anything else?
I did, but it completely slipped my mind just now, so disregard it.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Des or Alito?
Nah, I'm good.
Nah, I didn't have anything else to add. I'm enjoying listening to you young man talk, man. I'm probably the oldest guy here, so it's always a good thing to see young men, you know, speak so well and really have meaning behind what they're saying, and to you know, just to kind of have good dialogue and get along in a conversation, no arguing or anything of that nature. So I always enjoy it.
Oh yeah, we argue all the time. This is the first episode. Brian's neck all the time. You just don't see it.
I know how Bryan is, so I can imagine.
All right, I don't know if we can go to recommendation of the week. Did you have something, Des?
So my recommendation of the week is to get me through I wouldn't say get me through a lot of workouts, but it's been the theme for a lot of my workouts, and it's Almost Dry by Pusha T.
The album.
Yes, sir.
Pretty good, man.
Nice. All right, I love the discussion. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Lito. Thank you for coming on. I think it was very informative. I think like everybody learned something today. I'm not gonna lie.
I damn sure did.
Yeah. But of course, thank you. Come back always. You're always welcome. Part of the Infusion Breakdown Show family. But yeah, of course.
If you got network, Josh.
Oh yeah. This is the panel too. We on a panel. So. But if you guys like the discussion, don't forget to hit the like button. We're gonna see you guys next week. Peace.
But while you're here, be sure to check out other great content from the Breakdown crew, including previous episodes of the podcast, Joshua versus Movies, Joshua versus Music, and of course, haven't forgotten about my plant lovers, Feel the Love. Just check out this begonia.